suddenly a smile appeared on her face as an idea popped into her head. If there's no manager, there's still a department head. The next day, during the meeting, department head Jin Hook announced that manager Kim had been suspended and had his salary cut. He also asked if Minin was okay after being hit by him. Minin felt shy. Why was he bringing up that he got hit before the meeting? Jang Hook continued, announcing that the Hala project would be temporarily halted, and mentioned that the plan had been written by Hyen. The company would continue with the project that assistant Jang had paused, which made her feel very excited upon hearing the news. Jean-Huc also mentioned that since manager Kim was suspended, the team needed to add more personnel. He introduced someone from the development department who would be sent to support them. That person was none other than the head of the marketing department, Monsieur Le Dunay. Jean-Won was surprised to see him. In her mind, Su-min should have been the one transferred to another department. Ji-won couldn't understand how Su-min could still smile brightly, despite the rumors about her and manager Kim spreading so widely. Finally, Jean-Hook announced there would be a party on Friday. He assigned Hane to choose the venue and inform everyone later. Before leaving, Su-min intentionally said loudly that she had heard everything clearly. She even smiled brightly and deliberately ran her fingers through her hair for the manager to see. In her mind, she thought, "There's nothing easier in this world than seducing a man." After work, Hyen pulled Ji-won into a cafe on the first floor and asked how she knew about these things. Ji-won said she assigned the Hala project to manager Kim because she knew there would be issues. Ji-won denied it, taking a sip of her coffee. Of course, this was something she couldn't let anyone else know. In her memory, the incident of Koreans being captured around this time of year stood out. She remembered Man Hanan being very angry when the government spent a lot of money to rescue the kidnapped hostages, but of course, she couldn't talk about that with Hyen. She made up an excuse about the tense situation with the Taliban, so she guessed that hearing this, Hyen admired her even more. While they were chatting, Won brought free pastries to the two of them. He asked Ji-won if this was the first time he met her colleague. Ji-won introduced them so they could greet each other. Won placed the pastries on the table, and Heen realized this was her brother's rival. She told him she didn't like sweet pastries. Park Man-han smiled and told her to give it a try. He only added a little sugar so it wouldn't be too sweet. He went on about the pastry, confident that Hyen wouldn't regret trying it. Hyen focused on the pastry in her hand, took a bite, and her eyes lit up. She couldn't believe it had such a sweet flavor. Hyen exclaimed, "Does this flavor really exist?" She didn't expect Hyen to introduce her to such a delicious pastry. He really was a good guy. He told her that if she wanted to eat, she could drop by the cafe any time, because he would always save one for the person he had been secretly in love with for all these years. That person was Ji-won. Hyen understood, but pretended not to hear. Meanwhile, Su-min was sitting alone in her office. Lately, she couldn't figure out Ji-won's moves. Just a moment ago, she had been out with Hyen who knows where. Suddenly, she heard footsteps nearby. Turning around, she saw the manager heading to get some water. Su-min thought this was a perfect opportunity to make a move on the manager. She suddenly ran over to ask if he wanted coffee. She could make it for him. When he said he drank soda, she snatched the bottle from his hand and helped him open it. She asked, "You seem to prefer soda over coffee. I feel the same way." After pouring the glass of water, Su-min handed it to the manager. As Jang-hyuk reached out to take the cup, Su-min pretended to lose her grip and exclaimed, causing the entire cup of water to splash dramatically to the ground. Su-min gasped and quickly crouched down to ask Soo-hyuk if he was okay. Su-min winced as she pricked her finger on a shard of glass, pretending to cry out in pain. She called the department head, saying her hand was bleeding. Chin-hyuk asked if she was okay and then turned to walk away. Su-min continued to tell him she was in a lot of pain, but Chin-hyuk coldly brushed past her, leaving her sitting there injured. He mentioned there was a first aid kit on the shelf and reminded her to clean the floor once she finished her tasks. Su-min couldn't wrap her head around how someone could be so emotionally detached. As Jun-hyuk stepped out the door, he bumped into Park Man-hwan coming in. Park Man-hwan rushed over to Su-min, concerned and eager to check if she was okay. Soo-min spotted him and burst into tears, saying she had hurt her hand. Park Man-hwan was worried about her, reminding her to be careful and asking if she had any other injuries. Soo-min thought to herself that this was the typical reaction of a guy, totally different from Hyuk-hyuk. She asked Park Man-hyuk if he could blow on the spot where her hand hurt to help her feel better. Park Man-hyuk immediately agreed. He gently took her hand and blew softly on the spot where she was hurting. Soo-min said to him, "Good thing you're around." Meanwhile, Jong-hyuk was hiding by the door, watching as Park Man-hwan held Soo-min's hand, complimenting her delicate and charming fingers. He even secretly compared her to Ji-won. Neither Soo-min nor Park Man-hwan had any idea that someone was watching them from outside the door. Jong-hyuk tightened his grip on the door, unable to hold back any longer. He thought to himself, "You can't let Ji-won keep dating a loser like Park Man-hwan. If Ji-won finds out the truth, she'll have to endure more heartbreak." Just then, he spotted Ji-won and Hae-yeon returning. Hae-yeon was still engrossed in talking about the cake she got to enjoy today, saying it was the best cake of her life. Ji-won spotted the manager and walked over to greet him. Jin-hyuk asked Hae-yeon if she often visited the Ballo Cafe, and Hae-yeon felt a little flustered. She remembered her uncle warning her to steer clear of the cafe owner and encouraged the relationship between her and Hae-yeon instead. However, thinking about that delicious baked pastry, she reluctantly apologized to her brother. In that moment, she decided to stay out of sight so the two of them could handle things on their own, which might be more effective. Hae-yeon made an excuse to head to the development department and slipped away. Ji-won also asked the department head for permission to leave early. Jang-hyuk immediately called her back. He pulled her gently and stood in front of her, asking where she thought she was going. Ji-won told him she was going to the break room to get a water bottle, and Jang-hyuk offered to help her. She awkwardly declined, not wanting to run into Park Man-hwan right now. She needed a reason to keep her distance from him. Jin-hyuk quickly invited her to dinner with him that evening, explaining that he had something important to discuss with her. Ji-won agreed, saying she was free tonight, but asked if what he wanted to discuss was work. Hearing Jong-hyuk mention it was about Assistant Kim, she agreed. He then informed her that the break room was having plumbing issues and suggested she go to the room across the hall instead. Watching Ji-won leave, Jong-hyuk let out a sigh of relief. He didn't want her to witness anything that would hurt her. That evening, Jin-hyuk took Ji-won to dinner at the E1 hotel. Ji-won asked him what the issue was regarding Assistant Kim and why he was taking her to a 5-star hotel for dinner. Jin-hyuk explained that she had worked hard due to the incident, so he wanted to thank her. He then asked if she still intended to see Park Man-hwan, mentioning that she might find it uncomfortable, but it was a very important question for him. Ji-won replied that she had made it clear before that she didn't want to discuss her personal life, so she had no reason to answer his question. She added that she and Park Man-hwan were dating just fine and hoped he would stop. Jin-hyuk agreed, and they continued their meal. He couldn't understand why it had to be Park Man-hwan. As they were leaving, he reminded Ji-won to be careful on the stairs. Just as he finished speaking, she slipped. Ji-won lost her balance and fell forward. Jin-hyuk panicked and didn't manage to catch her in time. Ji-won fell to the floor and her shoe broke. Jin-hyuk hurried over to ask if she was okay, and Ji-won sadly said she had just gotten her shoes repaired and now they were broken again. He helped her up and asked if she could walk. Ji-won wanted to walk on her own, but her foot was throbbing. She told him that she might have twisted her ankle, feeling a bit lost in the moment. Jong-hyuk politely excused himself, then swiftly scooped her up in his arms. He said that continuing to walk would only make her pain worse, and advised her to hold on to him tightly. Jin-hyuk gently set Ji-won down on a chair in the hotel lobby and told her to wait for him there. Ji-won's heart was racing from the sudden action of her boss. She glanced down at her foot, thinking that if she had been more careful, this wouldn't have happened. The lobby door swung open, and Jin-hyuk rushed in, asking Ji-won if she had been waiting long. Seeing him out of breath, she asked if he had run to get a first aid kit for her. Jin-hyuk replied that he borrowed it from the hotel lobby and carefully treated Ji-won's injury. He told her to toss those shoes away, as even if they were repaired, they would just break again and could cause more injuries. Ji-won mentioned that she only had one pair of shoes, but he insisted that there would come a time when she needed a new pair instead of just fixing the old ones. He added that once shoes break, they can easily break again. Then Jeon-hyuk pulled out a shiny new pair of shoes, thinking they would fit her perfectly. He carefully slipped them onto her feet and told Ji-won that she absolutely deserved to wear better shoes. Ji-won's heart raced at Jeon-hyuk's gestures. Suddenly, her phone buzzed in her bag. It was Min-hun calling. He was on his way to Ji-hwan's apartment, driving while calling, but Ji-hwan stubbornly refused to answer. She remembered that afternoon when she had thought she misheard him. She wondered why she had agreed to dinner with Jin-hyuk. Park Man-hwan was quite annoyed. If he had finished his work earlier, he wouldn't have let her go with Jin-hyuk. How dare he flirt with her? Min-hwan was glad Ji-won was looking more beautiful, but it also brought a lot of trouble. He was sure the coffee shop owner on the first floor of their company had feelings for Ji-won. Just taking the elevator made everyone look at her. There were even rumors in the company that she was the most beautiful in the marketing department, skilled and capable in her work. He thought that at this rate, someone else would steal Ji-won away from him. He called her many more times before Ji-won finally picked up. He asked why she hadn't answered his calls, and Ji-won explained that she had just finished dinner with her boss and had just gotten home. Park Man-hwan never expected there would come a day when he would worry about Ji-won, the girl he was dating, just to snag a bottle of wine. He recalled that when it all started, it was just a prank between him and a colleague. They had bet that if Min-hwan could win her over, his colleague would gift him a bottle of wine. Ji-won had once been a simple girl that Min-hwan won through that bet. He had confidently told his colleague that he only needed 3 days to pull it off. The very next day, he approached Ji-won to get to know her. He asked for her phone number and kicked off his plan, bombarding her with sweet messages, thinking that would be enough to win her heart. But things didn't go as he had hoped, and he started to lose his patience. By Saturday, he called her to see if she was busy. Min-hun invited her out for dinner, asking Ji-won where she lived so he could pick her up. And just like that, he and Ji-won started dating. At that time, Park Man-hwan only intended to get the wine and then find an excuse to break up with her. But everything took an unexpected turn. The more he got to know her, the more he realized how kind and gentle she was. In fact, she was so good-hearted that it bordered on foolishness. She always helped him with his tasks while he was out partying with his friends, never suspecting him of anything. That was what Park Man-hwan liked most about Ji-won. But lately, he couldn't shake the feeling that she was acting differently, and he wondered if she was cheating on him. Regardless, he didn't care about the reasons. He had become a much more capable man than before. Park Man-hwan opened his computer to check the stock market. Seeing the numbers surge, he thought it was time to put his plan into action. The next day, he would take Ji-won on a boat ride on the Han River. On that boat, Park Man-hwan planned to execute his scheme. He absolutely wouldn't let anyone else take her away, even if it cost him everything. She had to be his. Fireworks exploded, lighting up the sky. Under that sparkling sky, Ji-won held the bouquet Min-won had given her, looking stunning. Park Man-hwan took out the ring he had prepared and knelt down to propose to Ji-won. He told her that he loved her, and as long as she agreed, he would make her happy for the rest of their lives. Ji-won beamed with joy. Of course she agreed. Park Man-hwan pulled her into a tight embrace, declaring that from now on she was forever his. He added that she didn't need to worry about their honeymoon home. He had made a lot of money this time and would take care of everything. Ji-won smiled. Everything was going according to her plan, including the day when the MW company unexpectedly declared bankruptcy. The next morning it was back to work as usual. While having breakfast with everyone in the office, Ji-won shared that her boyfriend had proposed to her and that tomorrow night she would be meeting his parents. Ah-yin asked if the shirt she was wearing and her new bag were also gifts from Assistant Park. Ji-won replied, "Yes, he wanted to make a little from stocks, so he bought them for me. He also said he would take care of the honeymoon home." "Really?" Ah-yin asked. "Park is quite impressive." Hala, but don't you think getting married so soon is a bit hasty? Soo-min asked Ji-won if she was really going to marry Park Min-hanan. Ji-won laughed and told her, "Who else treats me with love and kindness while having a stable job and a business mind like him? Marrying Park Min-hanan will definitely make me very happy." She also asked everyone to keep this a secret for her, and Soo-min happily congratulated Ji-won, looking at the ring on her finger. As she watched, Soo-min thought to herself that she must have him at all costs. Seeing Soo-min's expression, Ji-won knew she would be so jealous she might go crazy. Even after finishing breakfast, Soo-min was still fuming. She wondered what Ji-won had that made her worthy of marrying Park Min-hanan. Soo-min was frustrated. She had always waited on Ji-won, giving her whatever she wanted and always being by her side. She thought she had treated Ji-won well without any ulterior motives. Now she was determined to take everything from Ji-won. Dumping the leftover food from her tray into the trash, Soo-min swore she could not let Ji-won live happier than she. Back in her office, Ji-won opened her account to check her pharmaceutical stocks. Currently, the stocks she held were up by 170 million. She thought this money would be enough for her to move out and quit her job after breaking up with Park Min-hanan. She then looked up the tech company MW's stocks, which were continuously dropping in value. Holding the financial newspaper in her hands, reading about the stock market situation, Park Min-hanan couldn't hold back his frustration. He threw the paper down on the table and angrily called the MW security staff for advice, but no one picked up. Clearly, he had told himself that this was a great opportunity, one that no one knew about, so he had invested all his money into buying these stocks. Now, his 40 million was just a pile of worthless paper. If Ji-won found out, she would definitely not agree to marry him anymore. He decided to hide this from Ji-won, planning to make profits from other stocks instead. For now, he would call his parents to borrow money. He regretted buying her that expensive designer bag. He wished he had just bought her a knockoff instead. Ji-won came looking for him and said that everyone was waiting for him to go celebrate Assistant James' project. Park Man-won said he had forgotten and casually tossed the newspaper he had just read into the trash, fearing she would see it. He told her to ride in his car, and Ji-won agreed, even suggesting that Soo-min join them, which Park Man-won naturally accepted. Ji-won glanced back at the newspaper Park Man-won had thrown away, secretly smiling, knowing this would happen even before he did. Today, their office was going out for a barbecue, a place chosen by Hyeen. Hyeen told everyone to focus on eating, while she would take care of grilling the meat. Everyone praised her grilling skills, saying they were truly amazing. Soo-min told Hyeen that she thought she was more suited for a part-time job at the barbecue place than being an office worker. Hyeen wasn't having it. She claimed to be multi-talented and asked Soo-min what she was good at. Soo-min shyly looked at Hyeen, thinking, "How dare this younger girl tease me?" Watching the two of them, Ji-won felt very happy. Jang-hook sat across from her, looking at Ji-won with a sad expression. This morning he had received a message from Hae-min saying that Ji-won had told them she was about to marry Park Min-hwan. Hae-min had asked her brother if he was just going to stand by and watch this happen. He heard Park Min-hwan remind Ji-won that tomorrow was the introduction ceremony for both families, so she shouldn't drink too much. Jang-hook didn't know what to do now. He kept pouring and drinking continuously. Could he stop Ji-won's marriage? Soo-min raised her glass and invited Park Min-hwan to drink. She hoped he would care for her more in the future. Watching Park Man-hwan down his drink, she told herself she would definitely claim him, no matter what. He would have to belong to her. The two of them kept switching glasses, and it seemed that Park Man-hwan was also getting tipsy. In the dining room, Jae-won and the two of them were present, while the manager stepped outside to take a call, and Hyeen and Assistant Jan had gone to the restroom and hadn't returned yet. Jae-won didn't like watching the two of them having fun together. She thought her chance had come, a chance to get revenge on them for all the pain they had caused her. She would return to them what she had to endure. Thinking this, Ji-won immediately stood up to stop them from drinking any more. She told Park Man-hwan it was time to go home, ignoring Soo-min's insistence to keep drinking. Ji-won told Park Man-hwan she would help him into his car first. He handed Ji-won the keys and told her to wait in the car for him. saying he would call a driver and come out later. Watching the two girls leave, Park Man-hwan finished the last sip of his drink, thinking to himself that Soo-min was still cuter. She was sweet and knew how to entertain while drinking. Ji-won took Soo-min to the car. She kept complaining about how hard her life was at the company. Ji-won said she used to feel the same way. She mentioned that it was thanks to Park Man-hwan's help that she got through it. Hearing Ji-won say that Park Man-hwan was so perfect made Soo-min want to marry him. Ji-won searched for her phone, and just then Park Man-hwan came out and asked why she hadn't gotten into the car yet. Soo-min made an excuse, saying she'd forgot her phone in the restaurant, and asked Park Man-hwan to keep an eye on Soo-min for her. Ji-won hurried back inside. Park Man-hwan peeked into the car to check on Soo-min, who was starting her own plan. She pretended to shiver and told Park Man-hwan she felt very cold. Seeing this, he took off his jacket and draped it over her, then went to turn on the heater to warm her up. Soo-min thanked him, her voice warm and inviting. She secretly thought that the bait had been taken. Park Man-hwan told her to hang in there for a bit, as Ji-won would be back soon. But little did he know, this was a dinner table Ji-won had set up for the two of them, so how could she possibly return at this moment? Soo-min raised her hand to cover Park Man-hwan's mouth and told him not to mention Ji-won right now. It was just her and him here. Park Man-hwan looked at Soo-min's expression, his heart racing wildly. Indeed, he had found himself liking her much more than Ji-won for a while now, yet he had always restrained himself from crossing the line. Looking at Soo-min's sweet face, combined with her playful demeanor, made him truly lose his. Soo-min pulled Park Man-hwan closer to her. Soo-min suggested that he could take her inside the house. With her proposal and charming antics, Park Man-hwan could no longer hold back. He jumped into the car, wrapped his arms around Soo-min and kissed her. Just like that, they had truly lived up to Ji-won's expectations. Both of them had different motives. Soo-min wanted him out of jealousy towards Ji-won, not wanting Ji-won to be better than her, while Park Man-hwan was simply a scoundrel, a jerk. One was Ji-won's fiancé, and the other was someone she had considered a close friend for a long time. At that moment, both had betrayed her. Soo-min suggested that Park Man-hwan hold her tightly, feeling satisfied as she had achieved her goal. She was about to have the man in front of her, the one who was about to marry her friend, Ji-won's boyfriend. They truly matched well, two utterly shameless individuals. Ji-won stood behind, witnessing everything that had just unfolded. They couldn't know that she hadn't forgotten her phone. That was just part of her plan. She watched the two of them embrace, and it seemed like this could finally put an end to everything. At last, Ji-won could take her revenge on them. Yet, even though everything had gone according to her plan, why were her tears still flowing? Clearly, they were the ones who had betrayed her first. She gripped her phone tightly, ignoring the incoming calls. Memories of the two of them flashed through Ji-won's mind, memories she wished to forget, even just for a moment. She remembered returning home from the hospital, looking for Park Man-hwan. When she arrived at the door, she spotted two pairs of shoes, Park Man-hwan's and a woman's. Although she had a gut feeling that something was off, she never expected that the person lying in bed with Park Man-hwan was her friend, Soo-min. She was truly heartbroken, but now they would have to endure the pain she once suffered. The nightmare was just beginning. Even so, seeing them betray her once again, Ji-won's tears flowed endlessly. At that moment, the driver Park Man-hwan had called earlier arrived. She watched as the car slowly drove away. Ji-won stood there, frozen. Everything had gone according to her plan. She should have been happy, ready to toast to their new beginning. Wiping her tears, Ji-won told herself not to cry. They were the ones in the wrong. If she cried, wouldn't that mean she was losing to Soo-min? With that thought, Ji-won headed to a late-night bar, planning to drink herself into oblivion to forget what was happening. When Ji-won finally opened her phone to check, she noticed several missed calls from her boss, Ji-hook. Just as she thought of him, her phone rang again. He really did care, didn't he? This time, Ji-won answered, and Ji-hook asked where she was and why she had left without telling anyone. She told him she wanted to get drunk and was sitting alone at a bar. When Jiohak asked which bar she was at so he could come, she hung up. Jiowon continued to drink. Of course, she wouldn't tell him where she was. If she did, he would definitely come, and right now, she just wanted to be alone. She thought if she had made different choices in life, maybe those two would have changed. But even now, living again, Park Man-hwan and Soo-min were still the same. They still chose to betray her. And she, despite having died at their hands, still clung to hope like a fool.